Alright, in this one, 3 tips for a more attractive chest. Number 1, use the correct incline angles. So depending on which part of the chest you want to target, the angle differs. So if your goal is to target the upper chest, then the ideal is around 30 degrees. However, if your goal is to target the middle chest, then the ideal is 0 degrees. Usually people have the opposite problem. They have an underdeveloped upper chest. So if that's what you want to target, then you should try to do around 30 degrees incline. And ideally, you should do flat bench press as well as an incline press for a more fully developed chest, but it depends on your weaknesses. Some people have a pretty good middle and lower chest, but they have a really underdeveloped upper chest. And in that case, you can hyper-target a 30-degree incline. So it kind of depends on the person, but any of these is actually going to target all of these at once. It's just in different ratios. And if you want to be optimal for the upper chest, then you can do a dumbbell chest press, because when you do that, it can actually adjust the angle of the bench. So you're not stuck to the generic 0 or 45 degrees, and you can actually put it at 30-degree incline, which is ideal for the upper chest if that's your goal. Tip number 2, maximize the stretch. So basically, stretch-mediated hypertrophy is basically passive hypertrophy. It's something that grows your muscles, but you're not actively doing it in a sense. Just your muscle fibers stretching under load already creates mechanical tension and increases muscle mass via passive hypertrophy. And there's this debate that will never end of should you focus on stretch-based exercises or just normal for range of motion basic exercises. And there is no perfect answer, because with the stretch-based exercises, you do get more hypertrophy per set usually, but then it also takes longer to recover. So on a weekly basis, actually not clear, because if you do stretch-based exercises to the point where you overtrain and you don't recover enough, then it's not going to be that positive compared to basic exercises. So it depends. If, for example, you're currently lacking mechanical tension and you would benefit from more efficient workouts, then perhaps it's a good idea to try to do the stretched-based exercises. But if you struggle with recovery, then perhaps you want the opposite. Maybe you're doing too much of the stretched-based hypertrophy, and you should add more full range of motion, less stretch, and more concentric type of motion in your training. So it depends on the case, but arguably most people are not reaching their full potential when it comes to recovery and weekly mechanical tension. So you could make the case that most people could benefit from more stretch-based exercises. And tip number 3, use a slow eccentric. So with the chest, this is actually super important, because the chest is one of those muscles where you can get a pec tear. With the bicep, you can get a bicep tear, and the chest is another one of those muscles where you can get injured severely. So it's actually a pretty smart idea to do a slower eccentric. Some studies indicate that it's actually better for hypertrophy, but once we equalize failure among both groups, then it's actually around the same. So the reason you should do this is not because of hypertrophy short term. It's mostly to prevent injury, which also increases hypertrophy long term. So when you do slower eccentrics, so for example, up to 3-second eccentrics, this will prevent ego lifting, which is when you want to progressively overload fast, so you keep increasing the weights faster than your body can keep up, and then you still do it extremely fast. So a lot of people will do less than 1 second concentric and then less than 1 second eccentric with pretty heavy weights. And that's just a recipe for eventually getting injuries. And like I said, the chest is one of those muscles where it can actually get severely injured, since you can get a pec tear, especially if you take anabolics. And even if you don't take anabolics, it's actually pretty easy to get injured while training your chest in chest training if you keep increasing the weights and you don't control the eccentric. So if you want to keep doing progress long term and avoid injuries, then it's actually a smart idea to do slow eccentrics, so up to 3-second eccentrics, which is when the weight is going down. And by controlling the eccentric and doing it slower, you're preventing ego lifting, which then prevents injuries. You will have to lift lighter weights, so it's not as good for your ego, but it's going to be better long term. It's equal for hypertrophy, very likely, at least in the short term, and studies are typically short term. But in the long term, it's going to be better for hypertrophy because you're going to be recovering better and faster, as well as preventing injuries. And if you have an injury, you cannot train for a while. So having injuries will definitely disrupt your progress when it comes to the gym. And by the way, if you want to get access to a female gaze physique program, click the link in the pinned comment and join my school community.